Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand, welcome to a new week, welcome to a big week. It's your latest Manchester United news and transfer news with me, Mark Goldbridge, and I tell you what, Rasmus Hojlund is hotter than the sun. Shut up in the chat, you've been trying to give it all that, you're wrong, it's going to happen. We'll be talking about that, and remember where you heard it first, here, weeks ago. Some people won't like that, but sources are sources, and we don't pretend on those. Also, Marcus Rashford imminently going to sign a massive new contract. David Ornstein has released this in the last few minutes. What are your thoughts on that? Scott McTominay, West Ham, Manchester United, where do they go next in relation to players going out of the door and Erik ten Hag's ruthlessness? And also want to just talk about something as well. The Glazer gravy train. I mean, look, you've got to call it out. You've got to call it out. Some people are just manipulated, and if you're quiet about the lie, you become the lie. We are still owned by the Glazers, and people are celebrating it, and they don't even realise they're doing it. We'll talk about that as well. Condiment King, thank you very much. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for your super chat. Yeah, Hojlund next is what we're going to start off with. But first of all, we're sponsored by Manscaped. They're one of our tour partners, in fact. 20% off, free worldwide shipping. You know the score with Manscaped. You get the ball trimmer, the lawnmower 4.0. Get it down there. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. Fantastic products. The weed whacker as well. But we've also got something that's just massively exciting that I've been hinting at for quite a while now. You might have seen it on previous shows. It's the Beard Hedger. This is a massive piece of kit. It makes the lawnmower 4.0 look insignificant. Look at the size difference there. Massive. Well, this is for your beard. It's waterproof. It's got loads of different lengths on it, so I need to cut mine. I need to do mine later as well. Absolutely the best beard trimmer I've ever had. It's unbelievable, and the different amount of lengths makes it fantastic. It's super powerful. You can get yours delivered to your door worldwide, 20% off with the code United Stand, free worldwide shipping. Manscaped really is the leader when it comes to male grooming. Get yours delivered today. Big shout out to Manscaped there. Right. Where are we going to start? Some people say you should start off with the Rashford contract. How much is he going to get paid? We should start off with the Rasmus Hojlund deal, and I think we'll sort of do a sandwich. We'll start off with Hojlund, Rashford, come back to Hojlund. This is how we're going to do it because I want to get into it. So Rasmus Hojlund will be Manchester United's next signing. We mentioned this back in early June. No one was talking about it then. They were talking about Harry Kane, etc. Really well sourced information. Sometimes you just get it absolutely in the sweet spot. Some people don't like it. It reminds me a little bit of Mike Keegan and The Sale, really. Before that, Mike Keegan was a decent journalist, but not somebody you'd go to for transfer stuff necessarily. But on The Sale, he's been fantastic. And sometimes you just get a really good source, and yeah, we've had that around the Rasmus Hojlund deal for a long, long time. This deal's going to happen. This is the striker that Ten Hag wants. This is the striker that wants to come to Manchester United. Atalanta will do a deal. Nobody's going to tell you when it's going to happen. And I suppose in a way it might not be the next deal because you never know if they go for Amrabat or something. But logically we need a striker next. Rasmus Hojlund is a striker that we want. The only way that United mess this up is through negotiations, which will probably take a long time. Onana took a long time, Mason Mount took a long time, but ultimately Ten Hag got the players that he wanted. So there's no reason to believe that Rasmus Hojlund won't be coming in next. I think the player himself is quite relaxed and expecting it. Atalanta are expecting it, and Erik ten Hag is expecting it. So I'd go with what I said last night. Just a little bit of information this morning. It's very, very unlikely that he would go on the tour. In fact, I think Manchester United are actually in Edinburgh now. Obviously, they play that friendly on Wednesday afternoon and then they fly out to New York. They'll be in America for 2 weeks and then they'll be back in the UK 2 weeks on Wednesday or 2 weeks on 2 weeks tomorrow, which would probably fit in perfectly with United's rough estimate of when they could get a deal like that done. There is a bit of concern that it could run longer than that. It could run to Wolves game, but Manchester United, yeah, it's going to take time. I don't think you're going to get a here we go in the next 2 days or anything like that. I mean, I just don't think that's possible. But yeah, I mean, some people want to pretend that this is a brilliant transfer window, but you know, I think we will end up with the players that Ten Hag wants at this moment in time, and I think Hojlund will be a really good signing, like Onana and Mount. but he will be the next one. Hi, Mark. What do you think? Hojlund is world-class striker, or again, we are signing some mediocre striker? We should go some like Osman, says Mohit. Andy, whether or well, thanks for gifting a membership. Well, look, I think Rohit makes a good point. The good point is that Manchester United, if you want to catch Manchester City, you should be signing the Harry Kanes or you should be signing the Victor Osimhens, but you're not going to do that with a Glazer ownership. Rasmus Hojlund is not a mediocre striker and he's not a world-class striker. He's a young striker. His story is yet to be written. He's a very exciting player. I would say he's, it's not like signing Ahmad, who was ridiculously raw, but you are buying a striker that is very raw, needs development, and it would be completely unrealistic to expect him to drop into that team and become Erling Haaland like Erling Haaland did at Manchester City. He's a developmental player. If you're going to judge him comparing him to Osimhen or Harry Kane or Erling Haaland, then you're being ridiculously unfair because that's not what we are buying. We are buying a developmental striker because we can't afford a top-class striker. What we should be doing, it shouldn't be Hojlund against Kane or Hojlund against Osimhen anyway. It should be Osimhen and Hojlund. We need two strikers. You should have the experienced star striker and the up-and-coming talent. That's what Man City have done with Alvarez and Erling Haaland. That's what top clubs do. Unfortunately, we're run by the Glazers, so we can't afford the top striker, so we can only go for the developmental striker. That is not Hojlund, Ten Hag's fault or anybody's fault. We should be buying both. We're Manchester United, but obviously we can't afford that. Looks like Vlahovic is available. Any chance we go for him, says Damon. We've never really seriously been in for Vlahovic, so no. Andy Mack, welcome to the Members Club, and he's given 5 memberships as well. Thank you very much. Hope people are feeling positive this morning. I'm going to come back to the Hojlund story, but I just want to drop in that obviously David Ornstein has reported that Marcus Rashford will sign his 5-year contract imminently. Reaction to that in the chat. Interested to get some of your thoughts on this. A bit of a mixed bag on social media. This is the big story this morning. Can you call my friend Harshith a prat, says Jake. There you go. So initial reaction is that I'm a big fan of Marcus Rashford. I really think he should be playing off the left. I was talking about this last night. And Marcus Rashford committing his future to Manchester United is a positive and not a surprise. He was never going to go anywhere else. Brand Rashford would be stupid to go anywhere else. Player Rashford doesn't want to go anywhere else because he's been at Man United since he was a kid. So he was never going anywhere else. And it's interesting that David Ornstein says that he rejected bigger offers from England and the continent. I'd love to know where these offers in England were coming from, because there's absolutely no way he was going to go to another club in England. Just not going to happen. I suspect that PSG would probably be the European one, considering his brother was over talking to them a year ago. But again, going to PSG, I mean, money's not what you're offered in wages as well. The money Rashford would make from being in England and the book deals that he does and the brand deals that he does, whatever PSG offer him, you're out of the room if you go and play in France. You're not in the room of publicity and focus, and you're out of mind. And unless you're going to do what Bellingham did and go to Dortmund and Real Madrid for footballing reasons, you don't go to PSG as an English player because you're out of the game. So Rashford was never going to do that unless his career at United had crumbled. He was always going to sign the contract for footballing reasons, and also footballers are brands now as well. So I don't think he was never going to go anywhere else. What I'm interested to know, and what I think everybody else is interested to know, is what the wages are, because that will be the thing that people will say, well, that's a good deal or it's a bad deal. I would suspect you're talking maybe 350, 400k a week, and then you open up the debate, don't you? I don't think United pay good wages to anybody. That's not Rashford's fault. We pay Harry Maguire 200 grand a week. We pay Jadon Sancho 350 a week, apparently. I just can't believe that's true, but there you go. And Marcus Rashford shouldn't be on 350 grand or 400 grand a week. But if he went to play in Saudi Arabia, he'd probably be on £1 million a week. So, look, that's not my issue. I'm glad that Rashford's staying. It would have been a bloody nightmare if he'd gone. But I suppose, let's just have a look at some of your comments, because I do have an interesting point to make. Definitely need 2 strikers considering we have an insane amount of fixtures, says Red Smurf. Welcome to Members Club, Rob. So the Sola says, what's your reaction to it? My reaction to it is this. I think it's like a new signing FC. I'm really happy that Rashford signed. I'm really happy that Onana's signed. I'm really happy that Mount has signed. But why do you need to announce Marcus Rashford smack in the middle of a January transfer window just before we're going on tour when you haven't bought a striker yet? And I just think this is completely and utterly the football club that we are under the Glazers. And I know it might not be directly the Glazers' fault. You know, there's all sorts of rumours of people that are employed to spin the PR. Neil Ashton, who used to be part of the Sun, apparently, I don't know whether he's still involved or not. He's very good at not being involved, but maybe he is involved. We've had people in the past who are employed to, I think it was Gary Neville who exposed it a few years ago. We've had people in the past who are employed to, you know, help players with their PR spin and everything like that. So Man United is a PR animal, and we're a PR animal, whether people like it or not, because we're owned by people who want to make money. So they want to manipulate you. I don't know why we are releasing details of a new contract for a player in the transfer window. We did this with Martial a couple of years ago in the January transfer window. And I think United do it because you're meant to go. It's like a new signing. You shouldn't be announcing contracts until the transfer window's closed. You can announce a Rashford contract in April and September. You don't need to do it smack in the middle of the transfer window. Now, this in no way is a reflection on Marcus Rashford or him. You know, Rashford staying is what I want and what anyone wants. But announcing a player that's already part of the team as a new deal in a transfer window just psychologically shifts your attention into a positive state of mind when actually this transfer window isn't good. So I think this is a typical United Glazer tactic, and it should be, you know, it should be read for what it is. It's a real positive that Rashford's going to stay. I can't understand for the life of me why people think it's not. But dropping it on a Monday morning in the middle of July when you haven't bought a striker, you haven't sold anybody yet, to me, I read it for what it is. It's a positive news story to spin a positive and keep the fans' mood up as you head to go on tour, because actually what fans are thinking is, we're going on tour, we've not sold anybody, and we've not bought a bloody striker, and that's not a positive mindset. So I think this dropping this morning is what United do. And I'd love to say it doesn't happen, and I'm sure it happens at a lot of clubs, but Man United are the master of it. And anybody who doesn't realise it is probably indoctrinated into it more than they think. It's the positive medicine that they give you to make you ignore the illness. It's the Glazers, and it's just what we do at Manchester United. Do you think if we end up overpaying for Hojlund, whether that will influence if we can sign another midfielder? I dread thinking about the budget, says Navin. Hope you're well, Mark, says David. Thank you very much. We're not a serious club if we give Rashford this contract. How can we be ruthless with the goalkeeper but make this zero IQ footballer our main man, says Julian. Bloody hell. And my Mark again, what do you think of Jimenez, says Eddie. Well, we're not in for him, so I don't think about players like that. No, I disagree with that comment about Rashford and zero IQ. I want him to stay. I think the wage will be ridiculous, but the wage is ridiculous for many players. That's not Rashford's fault. And I think this is a positive PR spin to try and detract from the fact that the transfer window isn't going to plan. I think that's very obvious. No talks since the 5th Qatari bid. Surely not. Talks are ongoing, says John. Do you think NDA is why we're hearing this? I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Morning, Mark. Hope you're well. Are you worried about Saudi Arabia players taking lots of players, says Mika? Well, we're not going to struggle with that. They don't even want our players, so we don't need to worry about Saudi Arabia taking Man United players. We might actually benefit from that because no one seems to want our players. But just going back to Hojlund, Hojlund will be the next deal. If you've been watching the United Stand for a while over this summer transfer window, obviously please do subscribe and smash a like, but that's not the angle I was going for. I mentioned this weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago that Rasmus Hojlund to Manchester United was hotter than the sun. I got ridiculed for it. And then over the weeks, it's become, oh, United are interested to, oh, he's the number one target. So really good connections around the Hojlund deal. It will happen. I think what needs to be said around the Hojlund deal is that he is a developmental striker. People shouldn't be putting too much pressure on him. I think he's got the potential to be something really special, but Ten Hag's going to have to develop that, and Hojlund's going to have to work on that. He is one for the future and the now, but the expectation on the now should be limited. Also, I think the most important thing is this is very unlikely to be a deal that goes from today to Wednesday, here we go. I think this deal takes 2-3 weeks, just based on United aren't really even in deep negotiations with Atalanta. And when you look at how long we negotiated with Chelsea and you look at how long we negotiated with Inter, this is not an easy deal to do. Atalanta are not saying you can have him for 30 million. and United are not going to pay 80 million, I believe this deal will always be done for around 40, 50 million with add-ons, but that will take a lot of negotiating. So I think we're 2 or 3 weeks away from that. Giovanni says, what about João Felix? I mean, I think João Felix is a player that Erik ten Hag would like to sign, but ultimately probably won't sign because the money is dead money. It's you've got to be a rich club to go and get João Felix. You've got to be a Chelsea, and we're not, because basically you're spending money on a player that you're not going to end up owning. Yeah, simple as that. Nicholas says then we should move on to what? The Rasmus Hojlund deal is not exclusive that it's going to take weeks. Any player we negotiate for will take weeks. That's what will happen. You know, it's interesting actually, just before we talk about a bit of news coming out around McTominay. Phil Taylor says Rashford's goals last season were massive. With this contract out of the way, he can throw himself completely into his performance, says Phil. I mean, you'll get people saying, well, Rashford was playing for a contract and he'll fall off this season. I don't think about that. I don't think about that. Hi, Mark. I know Onana is a great goalkeeper with his feet, but what do you make of his shot stopping? I've seen him parry shots into the middle many times, says Suradip. Look, I think Onana's going to work. I think he's going to be a fan favourite, and I think he's going to be a really good goalkeeper. I said it on national radio and I said it on United Stand last night. I think he comes into this league as one of the best goalkeepers in the league straight away. You know, that's his reputation. What he does with that is on him and Ten Hag. Of course he can flop. At some point, Ten Hag's going to buy a flop. I don't think it's going to be Onana. But what I find really interesting is, you know, we talk about yesterday and Harry Maguire. And, you know, I saw some of the replies on Instagram. Gary Neville was there, a few other people saying, oh, yeah, you know, really positive about his post about the captaincy, which I've never seen before. I've never seen a guy still be at the club but do a post about having the captaincy took off him. You've got Neville, etc. Oh, well done, Harry, this, that and the other. Our captain at Anfield, Neville's on co-commentary, basically saying he wants to get subbed off. And I'm like, you know, the hypocrisy around this sort of stuff is it's amazing at times, you know, how it actually works. Because it seems to me if you get a British passport, you're immune to criticism. And if you get criticised, it's a hate campaign. But if it's a foreign player, crack away, it doesn't matter. You know, you can say what you like about them, whether it's true or not. I saw, and the reason I'm going on about this is I saw yesterday, after I'd said I think Onana comes into this club as one of the best players in the club, in the league, I had in my replies compilations of Onana making mistakes. I never cared about the compilations of De Gea making mistakes, and I'm certainly not going to care about Onana making mistakes. I can go on Twitter, I can go on YouTube, I can go on the internet, I can find clips that make Scott McTominay look like Frank Lampard. I can make Courtois look like he's shit. Like, I'm not interested in any compilations, really. I'm not. If it's a Wayne Rooney one with his best goals ever, great. It's universally understood that Rooney was fantastic. Show me some of his great goals. I'm not interested in compilations of any player because it can be, you know, any player that could potentially, well, any player that's currently playing where you can potentially spin any story you want. You can make Messi look crap. You can make Neymar look world class. I mean, some would say he is. So I'm not interested. This will happen. People will go hunting for Onana mistakes. They'll go hunting for Mount mistakes, and they'll find them, and they can ignore the good stuff. I mean, for all the clips about De Gea last year, and he did make mistakes, I could do a compilation in 10 minutes of world class saves in 3 months. Not even the whole season. So look, people will go for Onana, but I think he'll be good. I do think he'll be good. How are we about to bid for a Hojlund? Sorry, let me just read that one properly. United battling with Leipzig for Xavi Simons. We're not. Sudeep, we're not. And Nick, thank you very much for gifting 10 memberships. You're a legend there, pal. Thank you very much. And Hassan says, how are we about to bid for Hojlund when we've already spent 100 million and haven't sold anyone? I thought our budget was 120 minus outgoings. Well, Hassan, again, a bit of an exclusive. What have I always said? We'll spend £200 million this summer. Again, people ridicule it, but it's the 17th of July, not the 31st of August. United will have the money for that. Of course they will. But you know what? It's interesting, isn't it? I said this I said this last night, and I used a different word, so I'll use a different word again. Kristen says, I think with the deals we've done with Mount and Onana, Hojlund will be around 50 million, but we need to sell a couple of players beforehand, says Kristen. Look, we've got a lot to get into on the show today, but we're sort of drifting around a little bit, so I want to focus it back in. But before I do that, it sort of fits in with everybody. If you ignore the lie, you become the lie. And I think that there are people out there that are on the Glazer gravy train, whether they know it or they don't. It could be journalists, it could be certain fans. But it's interesting because I see them, I spot them a mile off. And I wouldn't say I've got the receipts or anything like that, because you know what we do on this channel. It's not personal. We'll just call stuff out, because if you ignore the lie, you become the lie. And I don't think many of you are willing to do that. So what is the lie? Well, the lie is that the club's for sale. The lie is that this is a good transfer window. I can't believe the amount of people, outlets over the last few weeks that have gone deadly silent on the sale and spend their time talking about how good United are at negotiating. I've even seen it this morning. People are championing our transfer window, going, Onana, Mount, for really good prices. And I know where they're going with it. It's subliminally trying to make out that United's a well-run club. But you can't have a little bit of the pie and pretend you've not eaten it from the same pie. You know, you can't go in the pie and take out the steak or the mushrooms or the pastry and say you're not eating the pie. You're eating the whole pie. It's part of the pie. So if you want to focus in on, oh, United are doing good transfers, but I hate the Glazers, anything positive you say about how we're run this summer is positive about a situation that's not positive. The lie is that people are trying to spin and are being pulled into this spin now, that United are having a good summer. If you acknowledge this is a good summer, you acknowledge the Glazer ownership, and we shouldn't be doing that. And it's not a good summer, in my opinion. This is IMO. This is in my opinion, right? We hear next to nothing about the sale now. It's all gone quiet. Why is it gone quiet? Why is it gone quiet? We hear that United are doing really grown-up, mature stuff in a transfer window. Tell me what we're doing good in this transfer window, right? Because I would point towards we're not doing good in this transfer window more than we're doing good. When Man United will always bring good players in. You know, go back to Mourinho's first summer. Still owned by the Glazers. Ed Woodward's still the CEO. Pogba comes in. Good signings. Zlatan comes in. Mkhitaryan. People need to realise you can bring good players in and still be a badly run football club. People believe the lie. Oh, Onana, what a great deal. Mount, what a great deal. We've taken weeks on these deals to pay market value. It's almost like, forget the sale and spin the positive of the Glazer ownership and the board and the recruitment team. Just spin the positive. Mason Mount for £55 million. Forget the player. I like the player. Mason Mount transfer, £55 million. Is that a good deal? I think it's market value. Some would say a little bit over. £55 million for a player with 1 year left on his deal. It's market value. It's not a great deal. It's not a bad deal. Onana for, what, probably 40, £45 million. Good player. Really excited about it. The actual value of the transfer, around market value. And yet we've taken weeks. Middle of the transfer window. Monday morning. New contract for Rashford. What's that got to do with a transfer window? He's already a Man United player. Why are you dropping that in a transfer window? How many players have you sold? Forest have been waiting to sign Dean Henderson for 6 weeks. Still haven't done the deal. Fred's been waiting to go for 3 weeks. Still not gone. Brandon Williams, Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, Anthony Martial, Alex Telles, Eric Bailly. No sales. But I'm telling you now, you look around on social media over the next few days, you'll spot these accounts. They're subliminally trying to make you go, hey, it's the Fonzie, hey, everything's fine. We're having a good transfer window. We're actually fine. If I read again, Man United are finally finding their balls in relation to transfer negotiations. Wow, we've sold nobody. And we're paying market value for good players. Oh my God, we've finally found competence. I don't think that's competent. And I think the most sinister thing amongst all of this is, as per usual, United and their minions of journalists and everybody else are trying to, you almost become negative for calling it out because we've got so much to be positive about. Oh, I'm sorry for being a bit of a moaner when the club's meant to have been sold 4 months ago and the Glazers are still here. Let's see who's moaning next season when the results plummet because we haven't had the transfer window that Ten Hag needed. Oh, let's be positive that we bought a goalkeeper and an attacking midfielder and we've got no cover for Casemiro still. We've got no striker still. There's a hell of a lot of work that needs to be done, and it feels to me like too much time is being spent patting ourselves on the back when we're actually miles behind in this transfer window. There's a lot of work to do. We're going on tour in 2 days. We never sign players when we're on tour. So we're going to come back in early August with 3.5 weeks left of the window with massive holes in the squad and loads of players that shouldn't be here. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done by United. A huge amount of work. Rumours that Rashford's contract is £375,000 a week, says Sam. Well, I think a lot of people want to know what the wages are. For me, it was always going to be that. Rashford's, look, I'll guarantee you this. Rashford's negotiators are better than Man United's. I mean, United's negotiations are bloody terrible, as we know. So he's going to be on that, though, isn't he? I mean, we basically, ultimately, people moaned about De Gea's contract for 3 years. He won the Golden Glove. We booted him out the club, and then we gave his wage to Rashford. Let's be honest. That's what we did. So all this United's recruitment department is ruthless. We've got rid of ridiculous wages for De Gea. We've just gone, there you go, and given it to Rashford. That's what they've done. I mean, look, for me, Marcus Rashford's a 250 grand a week player, maybe 300. He's not a 400 grand a week player. I mean, you're talking about Ronaldo territory. You're talking about, the world-class best players in the world territory. He's not there yet. He's a massively important player for Manchester United. I'm over the moon that he signed a contract, but the wages, if the wages are anywhere near that, then it's just typical Man United because he's just, we shouldn't be paying that. But, and look, my first priority is Manchester United, but from Marcus Rashford's side, him and his team have played an absolute blinder. He's got 1 year left on his contract. You've got to look at it like that. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He says PSG are going to give me 400 grand a week. If you don't give me a really good wage, I'll run it down and we'll see what happens. United can't put themselves in that situation. He's got them like that. And that's United's fault. So I don't blame Rashford. Again, it comes down to United. They're just, we're run by Prats, as we know. Good transfer window is 5 deadwood out of the club and all the players in for the tour. Just saying, says that's piano. Yeah, and that's not going to happen, is it? Alex92, thank you very much. Welcome to the Members Club. Hi, Mark. We need another fans march to push this sale, says Mohits. And Rashford and Hojlund or Garnacho and Osman, says Hail Europa. That doesn't even make sense. I'm sorry for pausing, but there isn't even any logic to that because Rashford and Garnacho are already at the club and I want them to stay there. Little bit more news. This is coming in from Sky Sports. Of course, we saw yesterday Harry Maguire stripped of the captaincy. Of course, we know there's more to that than that. He's been told to leave. West Ham are interested in Scott McTominay, according to Sky. Man United have yet to receive any official bids. The final decision over McTominay will rest with the player. Again, I think you've got a very similar situation here. Look, I don't know what Ten Hag has said to McTominay. I think it's very obvious what's been said to Maguire. But McTominay and Maguire actually get on really well. Like, a lot of the players get on well at United. It's not like they don't. But McTominay and Maguire are quite tight. And they're both in a very similar situation. I mean, they could both end up going to the same club. And I think they both massively benefit from a move to West Ham where they play every week. They've got to play every week. Surely that's what football's all about. But it comes down to the individual player. We heard yesterday from Simon Stone that Harry Maguire is very happy in Manchester and loves Manchester United. Well, I don't know what that means. I'd be very, very happy working at Manchester United as well. But if I was crap at my job, I get the sack. My input on how happy I am and how much I love it is irrelevant if I'm not performing. I don't know why that comes into consideration. I mean, if you're Marcus Rashford, it comes into consideration because you're trying to get him to sign a new contract. But if you're a player that probably needs to be sold, actually your happiness and comfort isn't really my highest priority here. But I think we've always had a problem with players that lack ambition, that are happy to coast. And I think that the interesting thing with McTominay is I don't think he's on amazing wages, and we really shouldn't be giving him a new contract. So from a financial point of view, it probably makes sense for McTominay to go. From a playing point of view, it makes sense for McTominay to go. And from a West Ham point of view, or a similar type player, he's a good player to sign. Look, I don't know. I've always had this feeling that McTominay will stay, but ultimately, if you are Scott McTominay and you're Manchester United, if you stay for another year, are you going to play a lot of games for United next season? Probably not. In a year's time, will your stock be as high as it is now? You've got to look at Lingard. Lingard had the opportunity to go. Lingard went on loan to West Ham, played fantastically well. There's a £25 million offer on the table. United reject it. Lingard thinks he's got a future at United, stays at United, barely plays. A year later, there's no, his contract's up, but there's no real abundance of clubs looking for him. And sometimes you've got to just grab the opportunity when it's there. And I think that there's clearly interest in Scott McTominay, and obviously it's beneficial for us to go. I think most people would like to see him go, but I think it's also beneficial for the club and the player. Be very interesting if that works. But the big problem is, and it's somewhat the same for Harry Maguire as well. The big problem is we have we have a tour. We have a tour. And as much as we won't sign anybody while we're on tour, we probably won't sell anybody while we're on tour either. So it becomes problematic in that sense that I think we're just not going to see a lot happening over the next few weeks unless certain people don't go on tour. I think we're going to see a sale or two this week, but I think it will probably be more likely a Dean Henderson and a Fred and a Tellez and a Bailly who don't go on tour. If Maguire and McTominay go on tour, which I think they will, I can't see them being sold. And then you're playing games, the camaraderie, I'm part of this. It's harder for them to move on then, especially when they're players that probably don't want to move on. I personally think that if Ten Hag wants these players to go, he's going to have to be a little bit more obvious with it. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. If West Ham sign McTominay and Maguire, we should have an open-top bus for Moyes through Manchester, says Pete. But I actually think that's just disrespectful to West Ham, and I think it's disrespectful to Moyes, and I think it's disrespectful to McTominay and Maguire. I genuinely think that those players are good players at that level. I mean, Man United are meant to be one of the best teams in England. I know we failed at that recently, but we're meant to be one of the best teams in England. Are Maguire and McTominay the best centre-backs and the best midfielders in England? No, they're not in the conversation. You drop your expectation level to mid-table. Are McTominay and Maguire good enough to play for mid-table Premier League sides? Not definitely. I think in the case of Maguire, yes. McTominay, all right, I'd hold that debate and say I don't know. But certainly they're going to be better players at clubs where the expectation isn't that you've got to be the best in your position. So I think they would be good. I think they'd be good acquisitions for them, and I just think that's the way it should go. Albert says that Andre Onana, who we've not spoken about this morning, is at Inter's training ground to say his goodbye to the players and staff. He wanted to meet them before leaving for Manchester, says Albert. Well, I believe, unless somebody in the chat tells me differently, I believe that Onana is actually in... I believe Man United are actually in Edinburgh. If they're not there today, then maybe they're going tomorrow. So Onana's going to have his medical, and then he's going to have his medical, and then he will link up with United on the tour. I don't think he will end up with. I don't think he'll end up not going on the tour. Just on Sky as well, they're saying that Harry Maguire is considering his options after the Manchester United captaincy was taken away from him. Look, it's interesting. As I say, I was having a chat with somebody this morning. We were talking about Rasmus Hojlund, and then we were talking about Manchester United in general. Which reminds me, we've got Fabrizio Romano on the show today. I think it's 2:40. We're live with Fabrizio on the show, so make sure you subscribe, and be very interesting to see what Fabrizio has to say on it all. But I think that with regards to, and Fabrizio himself has actually said that Man United want to find a solution for Harry Maguire to leave the club. There are no concrete negotiations with West Ham yet. Harry Maguire's really quite surprised what's happened, really. And I understand that. I think we all understand that. Effectively, I don't think he thought he was coming back to Manchester United and losing the captaincy. But he hasn't. He has lost the captaincy, but I think some people aren't really reading the room. He's been told to go. You don't take the captaincy off somebody that's going to stay and is part of your plans. There's no points. There's just no point. You just do what you did last year. Bruno plays, Harry Maguire's on the bench, Harry Maguire comes on, he takes the armband. He's basically been told he can go. It's ruthless, and it's interesting whether Ten Hag can make it happen, but he's been told to go. And Maguire's stance has gone from, I'm really happy at Man United, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to fight for my place, to that's irrelevant when the manager's told me he wants me to go. So Maguire's got a lot to think about at the moment. And I you know what, on a human level, I get it. You know, footballers are footballers and they're remunerated very well, but it's a difficult situation for him now. He's got to get on the plane to Edinburgh. He's got to get on a plane to New York and know in his head that he's basically done, isn't he? So he's got his agent doing all sorts of stuff as well. It's, you know what, this is just, again, IMO, my opinion. It sort of goes back to what we were talking about. These people who want to champion the fact that we're having a good transfer window, it's really not a good transfer window. I think Eric's doing a great job trying to make it and rescue it, but it's not. Hojlund is great, but Moani is the right choice as Umad. And Glazers like to make a big name signing to win some fans back. Is there any chance we go for Kane after obtaining Rasmus, as Dusty? Spurs won't sell us Kane. I don't know why people talk about Kane, and we haven't got the money anyway. But you know, when you think about it, take Ten Hag out of the equation and blame who you like, but how the transfer window is chaotic. The way that De Gea situation was handled was chaotic. You know, De Gea's doing emojis on Twitter. We're dealing with Anana, and you know, it's just weird. No striker, as we know. No sales, as we know. You got Harry Maguire coming back to training with a smile on his face, and then he's having to tweet on the Sunday that he's lost the captaincy and he's basically up for sale. He's then going to go on tour, and everyone knows he's up for sale. It is a lot chaotic, isn't it? And you know, solving this, there is a time limit to do it as well, of course. So, and we mentioned McTominay there. What's going to happen with Martial? Apparently, Dean Henderson won't go on the tour and will be sold to Nottingham Forest this week. So that will at least be a sale. There's a rumour that Fred's not going to go on the tour and he'll be sold and stay back and sold as well. Same with Tellez and Eric Bailly. But you basically put Harry Maguire up for sale. We think Scott McTominay's probably up for sale. They're both going to go on the tour, then potentially come back and be sold. Then you need to get your players in. I think the end game is the right look. The destination is correct, but it's like whacking into your sat nav. I've got to drive from London to Cornwall, and instead of saying what's the fastest route, you go via Scotland. Bit of a geography lesson there, but Cornwall is left of London, and Scotland's north by a very long way. So if you go up to go down, and I think that's basically what United are doing now, because if Maguire and McTominay go, and Amrabat and a centre-back come in, that's great if it's done today. But if it's getting done in August, when the season's starting again, it's problematic. One positive, though, is that unlike last year, where we started the season and we didn't have Casemiro and Antony, and they basically were first-team players, when we play Wolves, we can still put a team out that's Anana, Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, Martinez, Varane, Casemiro, Mount, Bruno, Garnacho, Antony, Rashford. We can still put a good first team out. And that's a positive on last season. even when you bring in Amrabat, Hojlund, a centre-back, you can still put a good first team out at the start of the season and then get those players in August. I still think it's a massive problem, them not having pre-season, but we're a little bit better prepped because of what Ten Hag did last year in that sense. Look on the bright side of this transfer window. At least we're not in for an Artovich again, Mark, says Glenn. Yet. I'm interested, though. Let me know what your thoughts are on the actual situation that we're in at the moment. Are you feeling positive? Are you feeling negative? Give us some comments. I'd say for me, it's... I'm probably more relaxed than I would have been in previous transfer windows, partially because of the information I have and partially because of some of the things Ten Hag is doing. For example, I think Onana being done really helps us, of course. I think that with Hojlund coming in, that's going to happen. I think that Mason Mount's a good signing, like I said. Obviously, there is some ruthlessness coming through from Erik Ten Hag in relation to the Maguires, the McTominays. I still think Martial as well. Obviously, Fred, Henderson. For me, it's just the Glazer frustration that bothers me. I often think what summer we would have had if we'd been sold, and I think it would be very, very different, or what summer we would have if we had competent people in the club, because I think it's really easy to map out what Ten Hag wanted to do this summer, and it's very easy to see why it's failing. And it's not because of Erik Ten Hag, it's because of who owns us and the people who are doing the deals. For example, it's a bit of a broken record, but he wanted Kane, he wanted Kim Min-jae, he wanted Rabiot, obviously he wanted Mount and Onana, and he and that would have been a really good summer transfer window. We're in a situation where we're not getting Kane, we missed out on Kim Min-jae, we missed out on Rabiot, so that leaves 50% of your window gone, and one of the signings was your key big signing. So he's adapted to that, but ultimately I think we failed, and we failed Ten Hag on his plan A and plan B and probably plan C because we're owned by the Glazers. But people want to compartmentalise it. They want to say that there is positives in the board and there is positives in the recruitment, but they're hindered by the Glazers, which is completely nonsense. If anybody works in a chain of command, if you're hindered by the top, you tell people at the top, you don't be a facilitator. And there's too many people who facilitate the Glazers in that football club, and that's why we are where we are. Morning, Mark. I'm glad we're going after Hojlund, but you are absolutely correct. The window has not been great, but it is usual stuff at United, says Ray. Ten Hag's men management skill is dodgy. He treats unwanted players like crap and no respect given. First Ronnie, then Dave, and now Harry, says Tony. Look, I think with regards to Erik Ten Hag, I'm obviously a massive fan of Ten Hag. And I think sometimes to be a leader, you have to make unpopular decisions. I don't know the experience of people who are watching the chat and their experience in work and leadership, etc. But I've done a lot of jobs in my life and I've worked in a lot of organisations and a lot of different areas, and there really isn't the perfect manager who is smiley, got your back and successful. There's very few people like that. You have to have a ruthless streak. You have to make decisions that are difficult. You have to say one thing and mean another. You have to, unfortunately, at times, operate behind that person's back to get things in place, because unfortunately we live in a world that if you're honest with people, they'll do your legs. What I mean by that is, with regards to the Ronaldo situation, I think Ten Hag had to box clever on that one. The De Gea situation, well, I don't know the full facts, but again, it looked to me like United were acting in their best interests and not the interests of a player that's been here 12 years, because ultimately they didn't think that was the right thing to do. I think we're still learning about Ten Hag. There's a lot to be said about a manager that's been here a year that people think they know him like the back of their hand, because you don't. I knew a lot about Ten Hag from a footballing sense, from what I'd seen at Ajax, and I was very excited about him coming to United, but it was a very scratch the surface assessment. You look at the way his team plays, mainly. I wanted Ten Hag because of the way Ajax played, his principles, his attitude. We're now getting to meet Ten Hag the person because he's our manager on a daily basis. I think there's an argument that when Ten Hag says something publicly about a player, you might think he means something else. I mean, some of the stuff that he said about De Gea, some of the stuff he said about Ronaldo and how that ended, some of the stuff he said about Maguire and how that's going to end, I think he plays a game of not airing his dirty laundry in public. And as a player, I think I'd be a little bit worried about that. Of course I would. But Solskjaer was a yes man. You know, he was a yes man. There was no levels or layers to Solskjaer's coaching. He wasn't a very good tactical coach. And he basically managed as everybody's mate. I think there's a sinister side to Ten Hag. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think players need to be on their toes. This is a guy you've got to please. And this is a guy that you can't read. And I think that's a good thing. You know, if you think about it in a footballing sense, it should keep these players on their toes who, some of them have weak mentalities. So, look, if Eric Ten Hag does a press conference this week and says Anthony Martial's part of my plans and he's a big player for us next season, I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Martial was sold in the first week in August. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Ten Hag's a liar. I just think he doesn't necessarily express what's going on publicly all the time because it's not in his interest to do that. And, you know, some people are going to like that, some people aren't going to like that, but we live in a results business, and I'm sure you'll like it if we win a Premier League title. I'm sure you'll like it if we win a Champions League, and I'm sure you enjoyed getting back in the Champions League and winning a trophy last year. Nobody said that Ten Hag has to be ultra likeable and ultra honest. He has to be successful. That's what you have to be at Manchester United. I like him, but I made the mistake last year. I was like, look at what he says about Ronaldo. He loves Ronaldo. Look at it. Look at all the time he's on about Ronaldo. And then, you know, clearly behind the scenes, there wasn't that relationship. I fell into that trap. And I think we all had the right to fall into that trap because we just had a manager who, when he says publicly he loves a player, you know he loves a player. And Ten Hag, I think we're learning about him all the time, but I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a positive, what he's done. Very few managers leave on their own terms. Sir Alex Ferguson not only was probably the greatest sports manager that ever lived, certainly an incredible coach, but also did something uniquely rare. He walked out on his own terms after many, many years. He left. 99% of managers leave through the exit door with everybody wanting them to go. Jose Mourinho, Ancelotti's had it a few times. Wenger had it at Arsenal. So managers need to be ruthless because they will make mistakes that cost them their jobs. And, you know, if you hang around long enough, it's the old line from Batman, isn't it? If you hang around long enough, you get to see, you know, the hero gets to see themselves become the villain. And that's never a truer word in relation to management. So, yeah, the worst thing you can do is be openly honest and nice and trustworthy in the public, because you will get stabbed in the back by everybody you're talking to, whether it's fans, journalists, players. So, look, Ten Hag has to keep his cards close to his chest. And at the end of the day, people are moaning about Ten Hag, saying publicly he likes these players and then he throws them under the bus. You're talking about footballers who are mini football clubs in themselves. They've got PR agents, they've got agents, you know, they're out there speaking to people in the club behind the manager's back. Players can get managers the sack these days. And people want to take a pop at Eric Ten Hag because he might be manipulating a player publicly in relation to what he says. He's the manager of Man United. It's a very difficult job. Ralph Rangnick got absolutely destroyed by that dressing room. So maybe Ten Hag is an intelligent guy who knows how to play the game. Have played the game. Do you think it's time to give Ahmad a chance, or do you loan him? Moreno, it's interesting. Last week I got clipped up out of context for saying, you know, if you want to see all these youth players in the first team, your Glazer's in because you're basically letting them get away with not spending any money. If they'd hung around for a few more seconds or even watched the match reaction, what was the title? Ahmad's ready. I think Ahmad is ready. I want to see him given a chance. Hopefully we'll get to see him again on Wednesday and on the tour. I do want Ahmad to be given a chance, and I think over the next few weeks he will be given that chance, and then a decision will be made by Ten Hag. But we've just mentioned about Ten Hag. He's a ruthless coach. Which way will he go? Anyway, look, fantastic show this morning as ever. You're absolute legends. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do not forget, we've got Fabrizio Romano on the show. I think it's 2:40 we're live with Fabrizio. Obviously, he's very busy in the transfer window, but we've got him on at 2:40. We'll get the latest on Hojlund and everything else that's going on with United, outgoings as well. Look, if you want the latest on Hojlund, though, this is the place to be. Not blowing our own trumpet, but we've got really good information on him and we've been on about it for weeks. It will be the next United deal that they work on. Let's not put him in the 99% club because United can screw anything up. But the player wants to come, the manager wants him to come. Atlanta will do a deal. United have got to do a deal. The only thing I would say is you're probably talking 2 or 3 weeks before it happens because we've got to start again now. We've done Onana, we've done Mount. We'll take our time. But yeah, I think it's a breath of fresh air that we finally have a manager who isn't afraid to make the tough decisions. I'll drink to that, Rasket, even though I've only got any water. Thanks everyone for watching, legends. I'll speak to you a little bit later. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you in a bit. Take care. Don't forget Manscaped. Get your beard hedger. You'll absolutely love this brand new product. 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Links in the video description. Use the code UnitedStand or scan the QR code. I'll speak to you in a bit.